I can imagine you teaching like English in like UK, and you're wearing those those half sweaters, and you're like writing on chalkboards. You kind of have that image on me. You kind of do.
Just picture myself wearing a super tight one.
Oh, look at how muscular I am when I'm like 50. Keep kids.
All right, so we're gonna write here and here.
So basically, like in Inception, you'd be like, what's his name? The main character. God, I'm stupid. What's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, you'd be his fake dad, aka Alfred.
Michael Caine.
Yeah, you'll be Michael Caine.
I like how you go to Leonardo DiCaprio, but the character you're actually talking about is Michael Caine's character.
Honestly, though, you have played the game for a long time. Don't you have anything else to do with your time?
Gaming Blues Podcast.
You know, I did my own intros while you were gone, so I kind of practiced, you know.
Yeah, it's good. It is good practice. There's no better practice than forcing yourself to talk all by yourself.
Hell yeah. And that being said, welcome to this week's Gaming Blues Podcast, the show with two polar opposite gamers discussing the hottest video game news and bicker about topics I come up during my commute. My name is Andy, as always, and with me to my... Was it my left or my right? So this guy right there. See, we can do things like this now. We're in video now. Darren McPhail, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited.
I was going to say, I feel like at least half the audience will not appreciate that at all. They'll be like, what do you mean to my left or right? Oh, yeah, but I'm back after 2 episodes of not being around.
You missed my solo ramblings, which I had to do because you're a very busy person, Darren.
No, I'm around during your normal ramblings too.
Do you even listen to them?
Like, you know, like right now you'll ramble about something, or like, you know, we'll be talking via Messenger or something, and you'll find something to ramble on about, something that upsets you.
Dude, everything upsets me. Like randomly.
Or you'll find out a random esport fact.
Random esports fact, that's also a solo rambling, because Darren is basically don't care about esports anymore. Why is that, Darren?
I'm out of that game.
Why?
Should I even go there?
That'd be a good icebreaker. Just get us warmed up for our talk of the day.
Well, some of you might have known me in a past life as Darren from Action Esports.
Do it in the voice. Do it in the voice.
I'm Darren from Action Esports, and this is the Gaming Blues Podcast.
It actually worked.
Yeah, right?
I still got it.
I can just summon that guy at any point with my YouTube voice. But yeah, I did that for 15 months.
And I was his boss, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we worked together on that. We had some good times, and I think I'm just really sick of esports after that. And saying that, we're coming up to EVO weekend.
Yep, the only esports that both of us actually still care about.
And it's the only weekend where I will actively try to watch as much of it as I can. Whereas like with Overwatch League, or I'm trying to think of like the major circuits, like even like the Tekken tournament scene, like
the
they
World
do
Tour
their regular, for the World Tour content. I don't really tune in that much. I usually watch like the occasional re-uploaded matches, but Evo's the big one. Evo's the go-to.
Like back when I think we were in university, we would actually always catch up on the CEOs, final rounds, was it Winter Brawl? Yeah,
Winter Brawl.
Frosty Faustings, back when they still did it, the Ultimate Gaming Fighting Tournament or something. What am I missing? Final round. No, I already did that. CEO final round. Oh, NorCal, SoCal regionals. Those are big. Mm-hmm. And the only Vancouver Canadian events, the Toryuken. So that kind of stuff. We used to catch up on a lot of that.
Canada Cup.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Not Toryuken. Well, Canada Cup is still held in Toronto. Occasionally Vancouver, but I find that, you know, Toronto is still the biggest overall esports destination for Canada.
I mean, it is like the biggest city in Canada, so they have that going for them.
I mean, we have a better Overwatch team, I guess. That's something to be proud of.
That's Yeah, we have the better Canadian Overwatch team. You're totally right.
Mm-hmm. Like the Canadian favorites as Haksal and
And I'm just trying to think of like their real, like some of them have like way more Korean sounding names. I'm just trying to think of them off the top of my head. But I think the one thing that outside of Evo that I'll always watch is Co-op Cup for Third Strike.
Oh yeah, that's like the best.
That's so much fun to watch.
Japanese
I freaking love watching
tournaments,
Third Strike. Japanese Third Strike is like a freaking art.
Like
that's like theater art to me. I love it.
They somehow managed to always bring several Third Strike cabinets to that co-op tournament, and the announcers still have hype, and they're still finding new techs like every tournament. Like it's always fresh. I love that.
And that might be one of the oldest ongoing like regular tournaments. Because Third Strike would have been what, like 98?
98, something like that, yeah.
Or it might have been like closer to 2000. But eat that, Melee fans. It was around longer.
Ooh, I'm editing that.
that.
Also, you know what, Darren? I forgot to press record on the video.
Well, at least we have the audio backup.
Yeah, this is gonna be a harsh edit, isn't it?
It'll just be like just ba 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 ba, and it's just like saying technical issues in the background while you fix that.
Speaking of which, this podcast is available on major podcast platforms including iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, Podbean, and eventually Stitcher. And since I'm doing video now because I got off my lazy ass, this will be finally up on YouTube and not just be audio VODs. That means you can laugh at my face while we talk.
And those of you who may know me from the Gaming Pilgrimage, you can find this podcast on there in playlist form.
Oh, you actually got around doing that.
No, I'll do it tonight.
Fuck.
By the time people are listening to this, it will be done.
By the time I bother to upload this, it will be live. Anyway,
I actually meant to ask you, since we're on this big tangent about Evo.
Hello.
Is there any particular game that you're really excited to see at Evo, like in terms of like the actual tournaments?
And not regarding potential releases, right? Just the what kind of game?
No, just like purely like spectating. Like, what are you excited to watch? Like, what's the big, or not even the big, but like, what's like a title there that you're like, I want to catch as much of this as I can?
This might sound out of left field, but here's my top three, going from like third to first. Third is Tekken.
Oh,
because of all the tournaments I saw leading up to Tekken, including like the ones like overseas, Nee is just wrecking everybody with Steve. Like literally nobody can touch him right now. So if all the stars align, it might be another Korean fest. I'm hoping USA can turn up tables like last year when Little Majin went insane.
Yeah, he brought it last year.
And if JDCR wins with Armor King, that'd be also hype. Like, there's a lot of killers that at this Evo, especially for this year, because Season 2's been out for so long, everyone knows, like, all the good tech. And right now, the popularity is Geese and Kasumi is, like, the forefront for, like, the most played characters. So we're at an interesting place, but at the same time, I think, you know, the consistent Koreans are still consistent. So it might...
Koreans are consistent.
Except for me. That being said... It might be super hype, but at the same time, I don't like seeing tournaments where it's always the same winners kind of thing. I like seeing, like, you know, dark horses here.
Melee!
Oh, I got it.
Sorry, I had a asthma attack.
Number 2 being Samurai Showdown.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that too.
New game. Anyone could win, although Justin Wong's been winning most of the tournaments that he's at.
By laming it out.
Oh my god. Tam it up.
I mean, that's what he's kind of known for, though, right?
Yeah.
And this game, like, definitely rewards being defensive and punishing silly offensive mistakes.
Which is the worst game for me because I'm an idiot. I just like to play Rushdown and press all the buttons. And you should know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of experience with that. So what are you most excited for, then?
Soul Calibur 6, actually.
Really? Why?
Because... you and I played Soul Calibur before on our own.
Yep, I ruined Soul Calibur for everyone.
And I think that game while not doesn't have as much exposure as the other mainstream games because it's still relatively new. And I think the only reason that kept it back from being more exposed is like it just came out at the same time as other like big releases, so it kind of got buried. So I think much like how KOF 13 back whenever, like it was still like only like South America or Korea plays that game. The grand finals for that game was like super hype.
Oh my god, I miss King of Fighters 13 is like one of my favorite fighting games of all time. I'm like the only one amongst like our fighting game friends that really champions that game. And I would say it's like within my top 3 fighting games ever. Like I frickin' love that game. And the finals for King of Fighters 13 is always nuts. The top 8 is frickin' busted. You see crazy ass combos, you see ridiculous comebacks, you see like tech that you wouldn't think any human could achieve with that much pressure on them, and people just freaking pull it off.
If you really want to watch a really good KOF, look up the Mad KOF versus Bala Grand Finals for EVO, I think 2013 or something.
Yeah, I think it's 2013.
That was like the pinnacle of like the how good KOF can get. Like right now, nobody really... Well, KOF is still popular in countries. Like it's just not as like popular in North America, I find.
It's popular in places. It's played by someone.
I would have been hyped for MK11, but I think it's still like NetherRealm games. Personally, wasn't really my cup of tea per se. But going back to Soul Calibur 6, I think that game has the most potential to like really bring the hype to people, especially if a player wins with like 2B or something. And like
that could be a thing.
That game gives the most affordances for like the comical KOs. Like you can ring out people, or you can like do like clutch comebacks and all that. I think we haven't really seen super high level Soul Calibur 6 yet, like on a global scale. And I think this EVO will be like the best time to see what really high level Soul Calibur looks like.
Yeah, I mean, Soul Calibur 6 is freaking awesome. I think I've put in like 70 or 80 hours into that game. I've enjoyed the crap out of it. I know amongst our friend group, I was probably the one who was the most passionate about it. But it is such a fun game. I think Canada Cup 2018 was like the last time I really followed the competitive scene. So it's been like probably 6 months since I really checked back in. So I'd be very curious to see how the game's developed, because a lot of the characters I really liked were really good. But yeah, like I definitely actually want to like look up like what's the meta now. I'd be very curious to see that. But Andy, you didn't mention one particular game.
Unist?
Well, I wasn't going to point that out, but that's a fair point. I was going to say the front runner for EVO, the most popular game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Before I answer the question, move your webcam teeny bit downwards. Your imbalance is triggering my design sense.
Why? Because I'm like not perfectly symmetrical?
Yeah, you're asymmetrical, which is a good thing, but no. Smash Ultimate, I'll be honest, at least Smash Ultimate... No, actually, no, I'll go back. I'm one of those few people actually likes watching Melee, to be honest. I know.
Yikes.
Stop, get off your phone. I think EVO 2018 or 17 when Leffen went against some Armada, that was super hype. Like, I know you hate Melee to the bone, but I still think Melee is, to a degree, a really good spectator esport. Or FGC. No, not even FGC. No, stop. Melee is a good spectator game. No FGC or esports side. Melee is a good spectator game. Yes, okay.
I honestly disagree, but I'm not going to get into that too much because that.
But continuing off of that, Ultimate, I think it is also fun to watch because, like, I like seeing new faces and like.
There's a lot of faces.
No more always the same character wins kind of thing. I mean, we just had a Pikachu win the Summit tournament recently, I think. You can tell how much we follow the scene that we don't, but
I mean, I think the one thing with Ultimate and Smash in general, and I kind of, directly said stuff about this earlier, and you were commenting on how you don't like seeing the same winners, and the Smash community is pretty freaking notorious for that. It's pretty much always the same 4 guys trading places. Ultimate's been better about that, but like Melee's had that problem for a long time with like having the 4 gods, where there's like years where the top player just wins every major tournament relatively predictably.
I think that's also because these are guys that played Melee before Melee became like the big competitive scene as it is now. Like you can't betray like experience. You just can't. And for
people have been obsessively playing Melee longer than
any other game.
Most of the generation watching it has been alive.
And if you're a new player or even like semi-new, trying to get into the competitive scene, like hoping to win when there's like the same gods lurking around, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Unless you get lucky or there's like certain variables in play, I see absolutely no way that like long veterans can ever lose, I
mean, in Ultimate, maybe some fresh faces now have a great opportunity to thwack some pros.
I mean, as long as it doesn't become a new, like last year's Bayonetta versus Bayonetta or whatever. I mean, if Hero is allowed for Evo, I'm not sure if he is. I hope he is, because then we'll get plenty of like Twitch clips of
that. Would be pretty freaking hype.
Instant one-hit RNGs.
We're referring to Hero, who is the representative from DragonQuest, who's the latest DLC character for Smash Ultimate, who I believe is out now. Is he out tonight?
I think he's out now. I saw people streaming him already.
And he looks pretty busty. He's got some RNG mechanics. He's got some...
he has like 4 different down Bs or some shit.
He has the ability to put people to sleep and then charge an up smash and kill them. He has the ability to teleport to people. People have been theory crafting like crazy all day with all the crazy stuff he can do. I love it because people are talking about Dragon Quest. And it's been a long time coming because Dragon Quest is freaking fantastic and the West has ignored it for far too long.
I have several questions for you because you're a Dragon Quest fan.
I'm a big fan.
Question number 1. Some people don't know what Dragon Quest is. How do you feel about that? And they're like, what is this Dragon Quest game they're taking a slot out of?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is with Smash Brothers, a lot of that crowd's like, another sword character? Like, this is a stupid pull. Give me Banjo-Kazooie. And they want that.
But they got that, though.
They did get that, so they can have that. But, like, the Japanese fans, like, oh my god, like, watching the Japanese fans' reactions to it. For those that don't know, Dragon Quest is, like, the premier Japanese-style role-playing game. It's been around for, over 30 years now?
Forever. I mean, you should know the exact number by now. What kind of fan are you?
I mean, but the thing is, I got into it, late. In, in 2011, 12, with the... DS remakes of 4, 5, and 6. Specifically 5. 5's in my opinion, one of the best classic Japanese RPGs ever. I would put it above all the Final Fantasies and all that. I'd say it's a must play.
Question number 2. One of the moves for Hero is you input a command and you get to choose between 4 different moves.
So when you say command, you're talking about the menu-based commands, like in the game, or like in a lot of Japanese RPGs.
Yes, sir. And Darren, we live in different countries. That means different languages, especially English and Japanese. So I saw...
Well...
Let me finish.
Yeah.
So I saw... I'm not sure who started this. I'm just going to say Zero, one of the... I'm going to say the most popular Ultimate player out there right now, tweeted that...
Most popular Ultimate streamer.
Streamer, yes, not a player. Not a player. Ouch. But he tweeted out something really interesting that depending on the version you get, the items on those menus will either be English or Japanese. And he is saying that you can literally use Hero as a counterpick because English plebs won't know what those Japanese moon symbols will mean. Now,
if you're playing in Japanese.
If you're playing Japanese. But
if you're playing in English...
No. Here's the thing. Here's the funny part. Someone else counter-tweeted that saying, You fool. Dragon Quest fans have learned Japanese because they translated all the games because Square Enix took forever with localizations. They know what all those symbols mean now.
That's true.
Your counterpick is useless.
It just means Dragon Quest fans are at the top of the meta. They're gonna be the players to beat. But I mean, if you're playing in English, like is he talking about online specifically?
I think he means tournaments.
Well, in tournament, wouldn't you just play the game in English?
I mean, there's Japanese players, right? What's stopping them from changing locales?
That's actually a really good point because that would change like their literacy.
Yep.
Like
I can't
otherwise,
read English.
I'd imagine. Well, I mean, it might be easier for them to look at the English and know what it is versus the Japanese, like versus a Westerner trying to learn the Japanese. Because at least like the English words are like, so you have stuff like thwack, zoom, and like sleep. Like all those words look very different. Whereas like in the Japanese, like when you look at it at a glance as a Westerner, you're like, but if you're like a Japanese guy, you're smart already because you know Japanese. You can look at that and kind of be like, oh, like that looks different. And you can kind of remember like the letter count. Whereas a stupid gaijin, they're not going to know what the moon runes are.
What does thwack mean? What's thwack in Japanese? Is it called thwaku?
It might be. Because a lot of the Dragon Quest translations are... there's a good deal of liberties taken. Like in the Japanese Dragon Quest games, they refer to like a god. Like when you go to a church, they say, pray to God to save your game.
Right.
Whereas in the English versions, because we can't, Nintendo of America censorship, you can't say, hey, pray to God. You can't say that to children. How dare you? You say, pray to the goddess.
Why is that
so
okay?
like that's a big thing. And a big thing in the localizations is giving characters accents. Which is somewhat true in the Japanese version as well, because like there's different regional dialects and whatnot.
Right.
But in the English version, they go frickin' like all out. They give characters like crazy accents, and it'll be in, like the actual writing. So I think the spell names are going to be pretty different, but because like there's stuff like boom and kaboom, which is a more powerful. A kazing, yeah, because ka usually means like the one that hits multiple people. Yeah. Or it's like the upgraded version. And I don't know. I imagine because it's ka, it must be similar in Japanese because that's an actual character. Yeah. In like their alphabets.
And they have a Z sound too, so.
Yeah. So I imagine it's somewhat similar, but there's probably a couple liberties. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Thwack was just like death in Japanese, and they're like, "That's really grim. Just casting death. You're gonna thwack them."
You can't say death to kids. You're only thwacking them.
I mean, the best part is that I've always liked about it is like when a character dies, you just have their coffin behind you.
That was kind of weird too. Like all these symbolism here and there.
I mean, that religion's usually a pretty big part because it's inspired by like D&D style dungeon crawling where churches and whatnot play a bigger part in settings. So it's kind of taken from that, and they kind of spun their own thing on that. But Hero looks really cool. I really like how they integrated the various mechanics and I guess the look and feel of Dragon Quest, which is something Smash is very good at. Like we saw that with Cloud with his limit break system.
Or Joker from Persona.
Joker from Persona is also a good example. Kirby, I think, is probably the most classical example of like taking a character's mechanics and just putting him in Smash and he's literally just Kirby. So I'd say they've done a really, really, really good job of taking something that theoretically should not work, and it seemingly works maybe too well.
Now,
we'll have to see.
The hero from... I don't know why I just call it the hero, but the hero is, I think, 4 different Dragon Quest heroes in one, correct?
Well, the default is the hero. I don't know the official name, because some of the hero characters have like either a manga adaptation or they're referenced in other games.
Right.
Like most specifically Erdrick, which is Loto or Roto in Japanese. He's the hero technically from Dragon Quest 1 and 3. In 3, you're playing as the original Erdrick, which is the English version. They called him Erdrick, whereas in Japanese, he's like Roto or Loto. It's like the RL thing.
Right.
And
he's a lottery.
In one, you're a descendant of him, and your name in canon, you're named after him. And then in Dragon Quest 2, you just play a distant descendant of that guy who just has a different name. But not all of them have that name. So for Dragon Quest 11, he's the default avatar for Hero.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can switch to the one from Dragon Quest 4, which is like the start of its own trilogy. Is
that the one with the green hair?
Yes, he's got the weird, like, almost like aquatic looking like crown on his head.
Yeah.
That's the only game that has a hero designed like that, so that's interesting. And then they have the classic, like all the characters look very classic Toriyama. Mm-hmm. You have Erdrick, who's the guy who's got like the metal band and the spiked up Goku hair. Yeah. That's the one from Dragon Quest 3 specifically, which is like one of, if not like the most popular like Japanese style RPG ever, especially amongst Japanese fans. Like they were crazy about that. And then in the Western sense, you probably have the most popular representative, which is the Dragon Quest 8 hero.
Yes, my favorite.
Who's got the bandana. I freaking love. I love those designs.
I still haven't
I'm bummed out. I didn't get my Dragon Quest 5 design though.
Which one is that? Is that the one with the green tunic?
No, he's got the turban.
Oh, right. There's one before that.
Like, you know that we were talking, I think we talked about this on like a really early episode, but the Dragon Quest Your Story movie, the CG movie.
Yes.
That one's based off of 5. So he's wearing the turban, has like a ponytail and like the
purple turban, right?
Yes.
Right, that character. See, I know my box arts.
Yeah, you know your box arts. I mean, that's honestly like how like the hero is on each box art for each game. So that's kind of how you tell them apart.
All right. So, I mean, to be honest, that's all we have to talk about. Hero featured in Dragon Quest XI S coming to Nintendo Switch on November 27th. No, I don't know what the joke is. Go check out Leffen's Twitter. He just tweeted something incredibly hilarious about that. But we'll leave it to you. Leffen also started a change.org petition to get Hero banned from tournaments because all the RNG mechanics. And I actually agree with them on this one, to be honest.
Boo! You guys suck.
Dude, we can't put RNG on a mechanic. Like in competitive environment.
Minuscule.
Dude,
you technically have RNG mechanics with characters like
Thwack'd,
Faust, right?
Thwack'd can kill instantly, given like even with 1%. That's still 1% though.
It's so minimal, and if you, and I think in any competitive setting, if you actually try to use Thwack'd, you're gonna get Thwack'd by the other guy because you're leaving yourself open and doing a bad move.
Can you imagine if like both players just try to thwack each other till the end? If they're the last stock,
it'd either be a really short match or a really long one.
I think that'd be super hype. Like they're both on last stock and just try to thwack each other.
Can it be reflected?
Ooh,
because that if it can be reflected, I say it's fair game.
Can you also
there's so many characters who have like reflections, or if you could just shield it.
There you go.
Or you can spot dodge. Like, I don't really get it because it's not a guarantee. Like, it's such a huge risk for the other player to try to do it.
But it's still
and
there,
I think it's
right?
It's just Smash players being babies about anything that's not exactly like the way they like to play the game with all the numbers and stuff. They want it exactly all the same with the same frame data. They want to know everything. I don't think it's
like it's not even that. I don't think. Like
they're very particular, but they're already very particular about how their game should be played. You have to play on these stages. It can't be like this. You can't have any items. That. Like, you can't have stuff like that.
If you actually read like what Leffens wrote, like they're actually like legit arguments. I find even if you think about game design, they always teach you that RNG is a bad thing, although they do it all the time.
It can be. Like critical hits are an example of that, right? Like in Japanese RPGs.
But in that context, it makes sense for like RPGs or like what's a good one? Like any RPG games that like has stats to it. But let's say in Tekken, there's like, let's say, you know those like unblockables? Let's say but they have a percentage to insta-kill. Let's say Kazuya's Devil Laser has a like really small percentage to insta-kill at a certain like HP percent. Wouldn't that be like bad?
The FGC perspective would be to adapt, dodge it, don't get hit by it, get good.
What if you can do a setup that lets you do it? It's like Infinites in a way. Don't you think?
But the thing is, you don't know if there's a setup to do it. You don't know if it's as powerful as an Infinite. And I don't think this is based off of what they showed.
So
I think it looks like, I think it's just a fun little gimmick thing. And if they're really smart to avoid people like Leffen and like the top competitive people from losing their shit, they should just add an option to turn off the instant kill.
Well, I don't know about that, but I also think
Like just change Thwack'd to do damage. Like, isn't there other characters who have stuff where they do a move like freaking Game & Watch? He's got his down B with the hammer that is RNG that can do like not necessarily instant kill, but get pretty close to it.
See, that's the difference. This thing, Thwack insta kills. But at the same time, I think Leffen might be super trolling. Who knows?
He probably is, because
I think
that's 90% of like his persona.
Like even his tweet about
the shit.
Like Hero being like bad seems like trollish to me, and people are still like eating
it's
it
super
up.
trollish because he hasn't even played. He hasn't even like at the time he tweeted it, he didn't even have hands on. No one did.
So
he's just stirring the pot.
Let's
Gets
just
clicks, yo.
Let's just say Leffen will be Leffen, and I actually like him as a personality. I think it's cool.
Sure.
I know you don't really like anyone in the FGC. Or not FGC, sorry, Smash.
There's tons of cool people in the FGC, but Smash are not really the FGC. They're like
moving on,
little cesspool. At least they're showering now, or they're being forced to.
I mean, I guess Evo will provide deodorants this year, maybe. Like it's like,
That's an expense.
We will provide water or deodorant, and not both. So pick one.
Well, people are probably just gonna pick water. It's in frickin' Las Vegas. Gotta stay hydrated.
Did you also hear about like there's a gigantic grasshopper storm right now happening? Like locust storms happening in Vegas right now.
Oh, it's the end of days.
Yep, they're gonna hold
Just
the FGC
in time
there.
for Smash.
Speaking of Nintendo stuff, let's move on to the actual topic, which I brought Darren here to talk about for once. So Darren, what is one of your favorite franchises ever?
Well, if you know me for my YouTube channel, you would probably know it's the Tales of series.
I know, but that's not what I'm trying to fish out, you bitch.
It is Fire Emblem. I am a hardcore Fire Emblem fan. I have posted videos on nearly every main installment of the Fire Emblem series. I should probably update that at some point to catch up to echoes and whatnot. And you know, the topic we're getting to, Three Houses, the most recent Fire Emblem game. But I'm a big fan.
He's a big fan of the franchise, not the Three Houses game. Let's make that clear.
I am a fan of Fire Emblem in general. I think it has incredibly addictive strategy RPG gameplay. There are some games that have some of my favorite characters and storylines in games. I find many of the games in the series to be incredibly replayable, and I revisit many entries in the series fairly regularly. And I'm overall like a huge fan. Like, I will support the series. I love the series. I'm happy it's doing well. But sort of the theme of this that you kind of helped set me up and kind of push me to talk about was I'm not necessarily a fan of the direction that the series is going. And this has kind of been happening ever since Awakening released back in 2013 and was a huge success when Fire Emblem was on the downtrend. The games were selling less and less, and Nintendo kind of gave Intelligent Systems, the developer, a one last shot to make like one more Fire Emblem game. And it blew up. It did super well. It helped appeal to a wider audience. It brought in more casual fans. It brought in a hell of a lot of anime fans. And for better or worse, here we are now with gacha waifu games. We had Fates, which was fan fiction. And now we have Three Houses, which is Persona Emblem.
Now, before we dive into Three Houses, and the main question I want to ask you first is why you didn't pre-order it yet. Or buy it. Walk me through your interpretation of the rise of Fire Emblem and where you think it kind of fell off and where it stands right now. Kind of walk me through that.
Sure. So, I mean, in Japan, they obviously have had access to Fire Emblem since forever. It was one of the first console strategy, turn-based strategy RPGs. It sort of cemented a style that games like XCOM and and I think Jagged Alliance to an extent, and other games like that. Like other Western titles would sort of adapt from. It inspired stuff like Tactics Ogre and later Final Fantasy Tactics.
Let us clink
another. Yes. Oh my god, that's such a good game. But Fire Emblem in the West probably had. I mean, if you talk to most Fire Emblem fans, they'll probably tell you Awakening's like the brightest point of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue it started at like one of the best points possible with the original Fire Emblem, or Fire Emblem Rekka no Ken, which is the subtitle, which is the Blazing Sword, which is the game that we got in the GBA back in 2003, which had characters like Eliwood, Lyn, Hector. Like, it was a game that it did pretty well. It rode on the success of Super Smash Bros. Melee by including Marth and Roy, who are two Fire Emblem characters. And they released a game that didn't star either of these characters. Mm-hmm. But it caught on because people are like, who are these? Like, Smash Brothers is really great for exposing people unfamiliar with the franchise to something new. And it did that for a lot of people for Fire Emblem. Mm-hmm. And then I was one of those people. I didn't know what Fire Emblem was. And I remember reading a Nintendo Power back when magazines were a thing I could get everywhere.
What's a magazine, Darren?
Oh, man. It's just People these days. Just People magazine. But reading that Nintendo Power, they had a preview on Fire Emblem. And I remember I asked for it for my birthday, and my grandparents delivered. And I remember just playing that game over and over and over again.
I thought you said you got your grandparents to buy you the magazines. I'm like, what kind of present is that?
No, they got
they
me Fire
delivered the
Emblem.
magazines to me for Christmas.
Oh yeah, I got a subscription to Nintendo Power for Christmas. Thanks, Grandma, Grandpa. To be fair, back in those days, that wouldn't be a terrible present.
It's a terrible present.
But compared
it's
to getting
equivalent
Fire
of giving
Emblem,
people books for actually no. Well, back in the day, giving books is a bad gift.
When you're like 10, you want a video game for Christmas. Mm-hmm. When you're 10. Even when you're 30, you want a video game.
Korean Santa got me books for Christmas. And
Korean Santa got me a math book.
And other kids got toys. I'm like, what is this? Haven't I been good?
Doctor.
No, it was like short tales, like mini stories.
The short tales of the Doctor.
Go be an author. I don't know. Go on.
But yeah, like Fire Emblem GBA was fantastic. I remember then picking up Sacred Stones, which I believe released like the following like year, like maybe 15 months after.
Really close.
Which is completely unrelated to, like, it's an entirely separate continuity. It's a different plot line, storyline, characters, nothing carried over from the other game. And the thing that we didn't know back in the day is that Fire Emblem GBA was a prequel to the previous game, which starred Roy, which is Fire Emblem: The Sealed Sword, which I don't remember the Japanese title, but it's been translated to English online by people, so you can play it just like those Dragon Quest fans and what they do with their games. But it ends on a note where it sets up the next game, or like the previous game. But back in the day, you're like, oh man, this is going to be the game with Roy in it.
Oh yeah.
This is going to be great. And then you play Sacred Stones and you're like, where's Roy?
Who's this green blue hair person?
I remember being in denial like halfway through the game, waiting for the point where Roy shows up and he's like, hey guys, I'm here to fight the dragon.
Anytime now.
And they're like, but we're fighting the Demon King.
I was like, what? I thought Fire Emblem was about dragons. Nope.
But Sacred Stones was great. It was still a really good game. I don't think it was quite as successful as the previous game because it got to ride that Smash Brothers hype. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think it's quite as like big of a splash. But then we moved on to the GameCube era, Path of Radiance, which this is where Fire Emblem, despite the game quality being incredibly high, I'd argue Path of Radiance is like one of the best games in the series.
Only
Certainly
because
it's one of the
Black
better
Knight in
stories.
it.
Oh, it's got the Black Knight. Oh man, sorry, I just had to think a moment about the Black Knight.
Black Knight makes Darren rock hard.
Oh yeah, I love BK, but Black Knight BK, he's the BK. Point being, Path of Radiance is really good, but it's sold like Garbo compared to the GBA games because people who had a GameCube were there for Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, and they're not there for a strategy RPG they had to play for like hours at a time to clear through one map.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darren. I was there for Bite and Kaitos, the best card game.
Yeah, you played the card game, but not like Path of Radiance.
No.
which is now like a collector's item. But Path of Radiance is great. That's the game that has Ike in it.
Yes, I
Then
love
Radiant
Ike.
Dawn sort of continued this trend of console Fire Emblem games just not selling well.
Mm-hmm.
Radiant Dawn didn't do particularly well. It was probably one of the worst reviewed, partially because it's probably of the Western games, one of, if not the most difficult Fire Emblem game to play on like the normal difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of reviewer, and it's also like super long. It's like a 50-hour like minimum game.
Ew.
Like the other games you could probably get through in like 20 hours if you're not really doing side content or grinding. Like you can get through them pretty quick. But Radiant Dawn is freaking long. It's the first game to ever give me eye strain because I played it at release like 20, I think I played it like 30 hours straight and I had eye strain and couldn't play it.
Really?
Yeah,
God.
that was back during a particular part of my life where I hid from the world and played video games.
That just got dark real quick. Go on.
Yeah. Sometimes the demons we fight in video games really exist within ourselves.
That's the most gayest thing I've ever heard. Well, I can't say that word. Shit. Censor. I'm cutting that part out. I can't say that word.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
But Radiant Dawn did not do well, and then it led us to Shadow Dragon, which is a remake of the original Fire Emblem, which starred Marth in it.
Yay.
This was for the Nintendo DS.
Boo.
It also did not sell super well.
Oh, no.
I think it sold better than Radiant Dawn because the DS just had such a stupid huge audience.
Oh, yeah.
And Fire Emblem, for a lot of people, feels most at home on portable systems. Which, you know, for me, like, I think tactical RPGs in general are really great for pick up and play. Like, you kind of clear through a map on a train ride, you turn it off, you come back. And in, like, the GBA games, you could just turn off your Game Boy and it would resume your progress from exactly the point you turned it off. No saving or anything.
Mm-hmm.
The DS game, it was pretty bare bones and basic. It followed the original game to, like, a T. Mm-hmm. It has its fair share of fans, but it came out pretty late in the DS's life cycle. It didn't really set the world on fire, and because of its sales, we never got the following game, which is like, it's like New Mystery of the Emblem. It's got like a super long name. It's so long. It's a remake of the third game in the series, which is a direct sequel to Fire Emblem 1.
Fire Emblem, Mysteries of the New Emblem Gaiden Shoken Ruken no Sword. 3.
Yeah. I think it's like New Mystery of the Emblem Heroes of Light and Shadow is technically the full name.
I also find like the original game on the DS kind of was like a super departure in terms of art style because I think they want to try to emulate was it the SNES or NES? Like that kind of art style, right? It felt really different compared to like the Sacred Stone.
They
games.
actually hired the Ghost in the Art manga artist to do all the portraits. Mm-hmm. So like that art direction was normal, but like the thing that really set Game Boy Advance and to an extent like Super Nintendo, Super Famicom Fire Emblem was the highly stylized sprite visuals.
Oh yeah.
Like seeing those critical hit animations and people attacking each other was super exciting. It was super cool looking.
Oh, freaking Joshua.
And then once they went to 3D, like in Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, and Shadow Dragon, which is 3D, the animations were really not nearly as exciting.
No.
They looked more realistic, but that doesn't always mean like thrilling.
It just aged very fast.
Yeah, like Shadow Dragon, if you look at the visuals now, like none of the character models have proper faces. Like they're just kind of like blank. Like it looks really rudimentary. Mm-hmm. And like it's an all right game. Like it's solid, but it's not anywhere on the level of the other games.
It just felt out of place, I think, in terms of where the DS was at its life cycle. Because the 3DS was like starting to boom at that point, I think.
But I know at this point in the West, Fire Emblem was like all but dead. Mm-hmm. But in Japan, it was also kind of starting to dwindle too, which is why Awakening, which is the 13th game and the first Fire Emblem to come out for 3DS, had so much pressure on it.
Don't you find ironic it's called Awakening? Kind of Fire Emblem awaken itself again kind of thing? No? Go on.
I mean, maybe that's what they're going for. It's like we have to revitalize, awaken the dormant series, this classical Nintendo franchise that's been around since the 90s.
I bet you they only said Awakening because it fits nicely on a box art, except like not to have like all those like Misters of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Dark, fight the dragon again, once again, and once upon a time.
Dragon of Darkness, super fire dragon. But I'd honestly argue Awakening was the brightest moment in the series because that literally saved Fire Emblem. It's hard to top that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I'll always appreciate Fire Emblem, like Rekka no Ken coming out in the GBA and like sparking that initial interest.
Mm-hmm.
But Awakening brought this series that was on the brink and revitalized it. And it brought in so many new fans. But it also started this trend of kind of
casualizing.
Two things. It made it a lot more casual friendly, introduced casual mode where your units no longer die, which is a core staple of the Fire Emblem games for people who just can't handle getting good at the video game. Or just reset like the rest of us, you pleb.
Hey, I'll help you know. Playing through... Okay, let me preface this. Awakening is the most... the 3DS game I put the most time in. Even more than Pokemon, even more than Monster Hunter 4.
That's crazy.
And I played on hard because I think Darren egged me on, told me, "Oh, who plays on casual or easy, you little shit?" Well, not in those exact words, but
it was not those exact words.
But I did play on hard. And I think one of the children missions, I think for Tiki's child, I don't know her name. I think her name's Anyway. I restarted.
I don't think she has a child in that game.
You can romance Tiki.
Yeah,
not
you can,
Tiki.
But I don't
No,
think
sorry,
she has a child unit.
not Tiki.
You're thinking of Naue.
Bingo. The
and she
illegal
has,
one.
It's like No.
Oh, that's
or something like that.
Noe, and her name is like No or something with the little thing. So her mission is extremely hard, and that made me restart so many times. And also, I suck at video games. If you want to see how much I suck, you can go to Darren's channel and Gaming Pilgrimage, and you can find a playlist where Darren and I play through the Sacred Stones, and we took turns for each map. If you want to see the pinnacle of Darren's anger and my like idiocy, do check it out. Darren think it's a bad playthrough, but I thought it was excellent.
It was fun.
It was excellent.
But there was mistakes made. There's a couple characters I just like forgot to move.
You killed my waifu at one point.
I know. I killed your waifu, which is hilarious. Because I was like, I forgot.
There's an archer there. Archers can move, apparently, you dumbass.
But people on the Emblem cast still talk about how you promoted Franz to a great knight. It still triggers them to this day.
Hey, we wanted to make it different. Hey, people remember it now. I'm a master of content.
Master of content, man. I remember that getting pretty difficult near the end, but anyway.
Yeah, because we made him a fucking great knight.
Yeah.
He didn't do shit.
His stats are not great either.
Also, if you want to see the pinnacle of bullshit RNG, oh my god.
Oh my god.
That NPC thwacked us.
He fucking thwacked us. Didn't he kill like 3 units?
He killed the dragon girl from far. Critical art, 2%. Seriously, go check it out. That playthrough. So, okay, if anything, you can watch the death compilation because it kind of like puts everything into perspective.
It really shows you the full journey.
This guy lost Ross really early in the game.
That was so bad. Oh, I felt so bad losing him that early.
Oh my god. But dude,
did not see the times.
I actually put the link in the description of this video and podcast. Do check it out, if anything.
Yeah, I might watch it later tonight. But Awakening, like from what you can you can probably chime in on this too, but what did you really like about Awakening? Because Awakening was reviewed incredibly well. It had like really high, I think it had like a 92 or 93 average, which for a super Japanese hard, like I'll say hardcore in quotes because it's starting to be a bit more casual, but like a relatively hardcore strategy RPG that's a pretty niche series, got incredibly well reviewed, like universal acclaim at launch across the board. Like, what drew you to it as someone who's not as big in Fire Emblem?
This might be a lot of fanboying, but number one biggest for me, that the character art was really like my kind of art, you know? Like the character design
by the No More Heroes artist, I believe.
Maybe, but the character art alone got me like interested. Like I played previous Fire Emblems before on the Game Boy. Not like I played it before playing it with you back on the Game Boy days, and those are fun. And back then I was still a casual, and I didn't even know like different weapons had like different hit rate or like different like how many times you can hit, that kind of stuff. Which you can see my idiocy at the playlist. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Awakening. I'm a sucker for like dating sim, that kind of stuff. And also like
a lot of
pairing
people. A lot of
people
people are.
And like, you know, those unlocking those support dialogues. And even the fact that, you can, depending on who you quote unquote romance, you can have different child and you can have different stats. And I'm like a sucker for grinding something. I was like, I can have so many combinations. I can actually like mix and match who I think should be the canon marriage kind of thing. That got me super.
And you
hooked.
also have, I know this pair will produce the most busted, broken, OP soldier. Like I'm literally breeding the perfect soldier right now because there was certain Awakening had
power.
An incredibly exploitable system where the higher level the parents were, the more skills you could pass on, and in turn it made the child units have better stats. And they always started at the same level either way.
And they have all the skills of the parents, and that was broken.
And they would just emerge at low levels with like super high stats as gods and could just wipe through people. And I mean, from like that's kind of a mechanic that works to the hardcore for like the RNG number crunching, trying to figure out the perfect soldier. And from like the more casual perspective of I like these two characters, I think they're cute together, or you have your self-insert character.
I'm trying to remember who I romanced. Did I romance Chrome?
It would have been Cordelia. Let's be real.
No. I made Cordelia go with Chrome.
You can't.
Oh yeah, because
she has an unrequited love for him.
Did I Cordelia?
And so they have no support conversations.
No, I think I paired up long Q with Cordelia.
You bastard.
I don't know. Cordelia, number one favorite character in the game, but I think I romanced Tiki for the Dragonborn, I think.
Because your avatar unit, which is canonically known as Robin, he's in Smash. You might have seen him.
Or her.
Yeah, good catch. And like you had a child unit, so you could, if you paired up, so you could create an OP god dragon child.
I think that's what I did just for, like, I didn't even use Morgan, whose is the name of your firstborn. I didn't really use
your only born
him or her that much because at the end game I have like so many units that are OP anyway. Like I didn't even need to bother using them.
Yeah,
even on hard mode,
definitely
like,
that.
It was kind of like easy if you grinded enough. Because it's on the 3DS, they introduced like DLC maps where you can earn a lot of EXP and gold.
Yep, you can go pay like $3.99 to get the map that just gives you a free level up every time you kill this one particular enemy. So if you want to max level your people, oh man, this just got a lot easier.
So I kind of like, cheated in that sense where I actually went back and grinded a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, for my first playthrough, I enjoyed it, to be honest. But looking back at it now, I might just do like a straight up no grinding run maybe in the future. But yeah.
Because Awakening was like, I think it was one of those games that like initially at launch, I was over the moon for it. I was so happy to play a Fire Emblem game that felt fresh, that kind of reminded me of the old stuff. The story stuff, like looking back at it, is pretty basic and pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
But like you said, it had a fresh new look to it. It brought like the one thing I always hold against Awakening that is like the start of this whole shipping thing, because that's obviously grown to be like its own subculture of Fire Emblem, is like the people who pair certain people together, or like that
fan fiction.
And to an extent that has always existed, because a lot of the previous Fire Emblem games, going as far back as like Genealogy of the Holy War, that game let you marry units together, and there were some support conversations. But in like the older games, the reward for a support conversation, like obviously in all games with a support system, there's a numerical gameplay benefit where the units they fight beside each other, they do better. They have a better hit chance, better crit chance, they might do more damage, stuff like that. But there was the big reward, like narratively speaking, the payoff is you learn more of this character. Because otherwise, like, Fire Emblem games have pretty big casts of characters, and you don't really get to see them in the forefront.
Nope.
So
Except for the main ones, yeah.
Yeah, like characters like Carol, who is like a sword master you can recruit, who's very difficult to recruit if you don't know what you're doing.
In Awakening?
No, in Fire Emblem GBA.
Wait, which one? The Sacred Stones or
GBA, like just Fire Emblem.
Oh, okay. No, I don't remember.
Yeah, he is hard to recruit, but like you don't know anything about this guy. But if you talk to certain characters, you learn like this deep lore and backstory about like how he's like part of this clan and how this clan operated, like what he's doing. And there's a lot of cool information that you wouldn't get any other way. And for some characters, there was multiple marriage options. Like at the end of the end, like after you beat the game, it's just like, hey. It would just say, hey, these characters end up getting married. And in some cases, it would say, like, at their max thing, like, you don't know at the time, but during the epilogue, it says they had a thing for each other, but it didn't work. And later they met on the battlefield on opposite sides. And you're like, oh, shit, like, that's a cool twist. And Awakening kind of took away all of that and made it happy-go-lucky, power of friendship and love will save us all. And the series seemingly has since barreled head first in that direction ever since.
I think two big factors might be for the reason like why it's got popular. I think the big leap from having no voiceover to voiceover is a big thing. And also,
yes, although Radiant Dawn has absolutely abysmal voice acting.
Okay, so we got decent voice acting.
You got pretty great voice acting.
And I think, as I spoke about the art style, I think that was also a big factor because, people at the time were starting to become more open to the idea of like Japanese anime and they're like popular shows like I think Attack on Titans and like, Sword Art Online. Those kind of shows,
for better or worse,
for better or worse, introduced the Japanese like I want to say pop culture, but like culture to the Western audience. And seeing a game having the similar art style, kind of like, oh, they look like, as Otacon would say, like my Japanese animes, and that's like a big.
This looks like one of my Japanese anime.
It's like a big hook for them. And I think if you look back, like Final Fantasy VIII did that kind of shit from. Oh no, even 7. Like you went from 6 to 7, and they choose like a different art style, and they let Tetsuya Nomura do the artwork, and he favored a more cartoonish manga style, which was popular at the time, and that played a big factor in people, make a good first impression. I'm like, oh, this art, I like the art, that kind of stuff.
Old school Fire Emblem looks like 90s anime, like that was very much the style, and then Awakening definitely looked like much more modern, like much more akin to what you'd see in like a modern stylized anime.
For better or worse.
How much of it do you think had to do with that you could have your own self-insert character that you could name, occasionally could make choices for, and they were kind of meant to fill the role of the player, and they're kind of meant to be you inserting yourself in the story and being a main character and all the girls liking you and all that sort of stuff?
Personal take is, the GBA Fire Emblem also did that, right? The LA Wood one,
but to a much lesser extent.
Much lesser extent.
You were like freaking window dressing.
Yeah,
there were like there was like
you have a sprite,
maybe
but that's about it.
10 points where the characters would look at the camera and acknowledge you, but otherwise you weren't really a prevalent factor in the story.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that, while I think what you're trying to go for is it does play a big role in some people, like they like playing that, inserting yourself into like the fantasy kind of thing. Personally, I like it better if I'm actually taking control of like an existing like persona. Like I liked it better when I was playing as Elliewood or Erica in Sacred Stones, rather than playing some kind of window dressing person in like the original Fire Emblem. Like they're talking to me, but at the same time, it kind of feels weird. Like, why are you talking to me? Like,
yeah. Well, here's the thing I'd ask you. Who do you consider the main character of Awakening?
Oh, that's a Great question.
Yeah.
Shit. I mean, my playthrough was Crom and Lucina, but yeah. That's a good question. Is this a trap? Are you trying to trap me in this?
Well, I'll just say this. In the game, normally in Fire Emblem games, if your Lord characters, who are the main characters, die, it's game over immediately. So if you had Eliwood die, game over. If you had Hector die, game over. In Awakening, that was true, I believe, for Crom, Robin, the main character, and Lucina.
In certain circumstances.
Oh, Lucina can die normally?
I think after everyone like unlocks the child heroes, I think she can die.
Oh, that's dark. Or, I thought maybe she's not required, so maybe it is Crom and Robin.
But I think after a certain point, you can just let Lucina die. Who knows?
Oh, okay. But essentially, like, those three are all like the main characters, but like they put a lot of importance on your character. Like your character gets a lot of the spotlight. So like, to Crom's credit, I think he's a decent character, but the story doesn't do a good job at fleshing out his character. Like, he's pretty one note in the story.
He's calm, but then it goes angry Crom. That's it. Well, that's 2 notes, but.
And then in like the support conversations, you get a lot more out of him to make him more well-rounded and more likable. But in the main story, he's like pretty basic. I am a shonen character, like here to save the day because I am good.
He also feels like he's only there to set up Lucina as a per character. Like, without him, Lucina doesn't exist.
And he's there to tell everyone how good Robin is at doing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We wouldn't be here without you, Andy. Thank you.
I am the commander, but you did more work, random stranger I found in the woods who suspiciously looks like the evil dude.
You wear the same clothing?
Everyone's wearing white, but you're wearing dark? Suspicious.
You're wearing black and purple? That's weird.
To be honest, I played Robin. I just did the default like appearances and I
generally like to do that. I've done a couple playthroughs like trying to make my own character, but they always look weird.
It just feels like it's breaking the fourth wall when they keep mentioning your name. I didn't like that.
Because then Fates, the next game, took this and like amplified it by 1,000. They made it so everyone could marry anyone. Your main character could go after anybody, even siblings by blood.
Incest.
And Azura, who's your cousin.
Oh, she's your cousin.
Yep. She's technically speaking the only character you're related to by blood because of incredibly forced story things. You see, Andy, your character's mother in that game didn't actually produce any of the other royalty. She just married into fucking royalty.
Oh,
3 times.
Okay. Wait,
3 times. She went across.
And that's how you hoe it up, kids.
Yeah, just went to different nations. That's not. It might be only twice, but still.
Once
everyone
is enough
refers to her as mother. Everyone loved their foster mother, like, unequivocally. It's hilarious. But they like like if you had like your stepmom, like, you know, that's a difficult thing to get over. But all of them just freaking loved her.
At least she was hot, I guess.
Confusingly, yes. And
they look nothing alike. Why do you have red hair but I have black hair? Who knows?
Yeah,
Japanese heredity.
With Corrin, they pushed this to the extreme because they made Corrin like the only main character, and that's the Avatar unit, and they catered the entire game around that casual experience, around the idea of like Phoenix mode, where if your units die, they just come back to life. Keep playing the game, go through the story, marry who you want,
marry your attractive cousins.
Marry your sister who keeps telling you that she's going to be your mommy. Camilla.
Oh, yeah.
She's got a mother complex.
Which one? Like Sakura did that? Like, fuck. Go on.
Wow. But like the whole point being like they really zoomed in on this idea of you're the character, you're the hero, you player are the hero. all the girls like you. They're gonna let you rub their faces because you're so popular. You can go in the hot springs with them. You can go on the beach episode with them. You can marry whoever you want. You can do whatever you want to do because you're the main character. And this whole war started because you're so cool and so important.
Why haven't I played this game already?
I don't know. I mean, I played all 3 paths. I wish I didn't in retrospect, because the more I know of that game's story, the more I want to just not think about it. But like, Fates was such a divisive title in the series. It was.
Who did you marry?
In my original Japanese playthrough of the game, where I didn't understand anything, I married Hinoka, who's the redhead sister.
The mage?
No, the Pegasus Knight.
Right, the best girl.
I mean, playing the English version, I don't really know anymore.
English ruins everything, but go on.
Yeah, but like the point being, like, going through that game so many times, playing it technically like 4 times, the Japanese playthrough included, were on that Japanese 3DS that you got me from your time in Japan.
That was a fun hunting trip. Trying to find the cheapest 3DS I can find.
The cheapest Japanese 3DS on that tiny screen.
Hey, it was worth it. Got you the
still got it.
Got you enough impressions to make a review out of it, so I think it was worth it.
That's true. It did quite well too. But overall, Fates was it was such a sour point. It honestly like broke me. I was so upset with like what Fire Emblem was, like with how, I think the word I'd use to describe Fates is that, like, you know, obviously there's good gameplay there. Fire Emblem at its core always has good gameplay. But the story and themes and the characters, it all just took such a turn to be very pandering. And not in like a good way. It was pandering to be like this wish fulfillment. Pandering to really get at those otaku types. To really get players to try to invest themselves as the character and into the relationships and appeal to those fans. And it kind of, to me, like it betrays like the themes and the spirit of Fire Emblem, which is like the tragedies of to make money. Because like, Fire Emblem, to me, the spirit of the game is about like the cruelties of war and why it must be stopped, and how like the bonds you form with those that you fight alongside are important, and even if they're dead, like it's still meaningful, because that's like a big thing in the games. There's almost always major character deaths that in some cases can't be avoided because they're part of the story and they push the story along.
I think,
but Fates went completely away from that.
I will also add to your point that I think Awakening started this to a degree, but I think Fates kind of pushed this again. That all the character age became significantly younger as the series kind of went on.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, Fire Emblem games generally star young protagonists. Like, technically speaking, Roy in his game is 14.
I mean, he makes sense in a narrative sense that he's just like taking over his kingdom from his dad, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's still weird that he's like this military genius at 14. But like, I get what you're saying, because like Eliwood, I think he's meant to be like closer to like 18, 19. Like, if you're in medieval times, that makes sense to go be the hero. But, like, in Fates and Awakening, like, you're literally fighting alongside children. Which is true of some of the older games as well, to an extent.
But I think, like, you're talking about...
But you couldn't fuck those kids. Fates lets you do that.
YouTube's gonna ban me. First episode in, and we just got banned for saying all these taboo words, I guess. And taken out of context. You gotta be on Twitter famous. Congratulations.
Hey, that's good publicity.
Yeah, thanks. End up on Keemstar.
That's associated with your name. You allowed it.
What do you mean? I can't censor you.
You could. You control the post.
Whatever. But yeah, I think, I don't know when it happened, but maybe because we got voice acting. Like, the moment you hear that Oni-chan sound like in a Fire Emblem game, and we're like, it's supposed to be about the cruelty of war. Like, which side do you choose? Do you choose Japan or Europe? And you just see it as, like, as you say, like, kind of appealing to the anime crowd kind of bit. and like the stereotypes of it kind of like brings me out of like the sense.
Yeah.
Like deciding over like the whole thematic thing, like push for Fates for me was you get to choose a side, and that determines like the storyline. Eventually, the side you don't get to choose, you will have to fight them and go through that kind of awkward dialogue. Oh, we meet on the battlefield, like we used to be family. Oh, I'm gonna kill you now. But that kind of seems like
your Hoshiden family. They're like, hey, we knew you for like 2 chapters. We love you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going with that family that you grew up with? Well, fuck you. We'll murder you.
And I only played Fates up to a little bit, I think, but you can probably chime in on this. But like, does it actually play up to the promise of like, oh, choosing a side, like leave these consequences? Okay.
No. The game was marketed as like your choices matter.
Mass Effect style.
And that's something that Fire Emblem, I think even with like from what I've heard of Three Houses, it's still something the series still struggles with. Mm-hmm. It's very much like pick which game you bought. It's the illusion of choice. It's like your choices don't ultimately matter. Things will happen either way.
Oh, that sucks. But
like think with in Awakening when Crom's sister is being held hostage and you have the choices there. Those don't matter. It doesn't change anything.
She will die regardless.
It changes like 2 lines of dialogue. They could have done it in a way where it might change how like characters view you. Because they're like, oh man, that situation, you did that. But they didn't do that. And it sounds like they're not particularly good at writing that way, which is something maybe Intelligent Systems needs to work on. Or at least the writers they bring in, they need to work on that. Or they need to plan around that. But
I think it's also kind of difficult to create a game where you need to write 2 different, like, as you say, you can just do the simple route where just like it just changes like 1 or 2 dialogue trees. But if you do change something that creates a 2 different path, aka like 2 multiverses, and that like really creates a complex scenario.
Three Houses kind of gets that a little bit with like how, you know, at the very least, all 3 houses that the game is named after are in the base game. You don't have to pay DLC.
Name ever in a Fire Emblem game.
I would honestly argue that from what I've seen, just like in previews and gameplay footage, I would argue that Three Houses has some of the worst naming schemes. Like Baelith, your main character name is freaking awful. That's terrible. Baelith, however you say it. It's just an awful main character name.
You know, Knights and Swords gotta play to the European theme, you know?
Baelith is not... That's freaking just made up gibberish. It's not even a real thing.
I apologize to any Baeliths out there in real life.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I know. I apologize to you on behalf of your parents who failed you in every way.
Jesus Christ, I'm gonna get banned. Why you do this to me? It's the first step.
But I would argue that Fate's like a dark part of the history of the series. Obviously, if you like it, I'm not saying I don't like you and don't think your opinion's valid, because there are good parts about those games. But I just think the story is completely betraying the spirit of everything Fire Emblem has tried to be and should be. Which is why I really, really liked Fire Emblem Echoes for the 3DS, which is a remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden.
Now, do you want to jump to that right away, or do you want to talk about our favorite mobile game, or do you want to lead us to maybe a second part of the podcast for like a next episode?
Yeah, I mean, all I really wanted to say about Echoes was that because it's a very faithful remake of a older game, Fire Emblem Gaiden, it is very much in the spirit of the series, since it's from that era where the main series creator was still with the company. He left after I believe Fire Emblem 5. He left the company, and he made a game called I think it was originally called it's called something else Emblem, and he got sued, had to change the name to Tear-Ring Saga. Yeah,
that's the game.
Yeah, that's the game he created. It's for the PlayStation 1. It's only available in Japanese, but an English patch is available. And it's an interesting part of history where it plays a lot like Fire Emblem. And yeah. But Echoes, I thought was it helped rectify my fears, going like, okay, like they still can make like a Fire Emblem game that feels like a Fire Emblem game. Mm-hmm. It still has all the classic stuff. I don't have my self-insert. There's a little bit of wiggle room with the support conversations, and there's like some stuff, but it's like a classic Fire Emblem, and it just feels good. It doesn't look too anime. It's a bit toned back. It looks a bit more classical, and it really suited my taste. And a lot of people liked it too. And then Three Houses, when it initially was shown off, and they're like, hey, you're like this frickin' mercenary military high school teacher who needs to spend a lot of time alone with his students, or her, because you can be a man or a woman. And I saw all that, like the social aspects and the dating, and I saw the lines of dialogue about how, like, you know, the bonds of friendship will clear the path and stuff like that. And I just sat there just saying it's happening all over again.
I bet you it sounds better in Japanese. Localization ruins everything.
Yes and no, because at the same time, seeing that subtitle makes me kind of facepalm anyway.
I think some of the dialogue that I saw from previews seem really funny. Like, some characters literally call other characters an idiot or you're like dumb, like just straight up. They didn't like sugarcoat it.
It's definitely, from a localization standpoint, the most self-aware Fire Emblem game in a long time.
I think that's kind of refreshing in a way too.
Yeah, it is, because like I hope there's a support conversation where they point out to you, the teacher, like, hey, why are we child soldiers?
The
Just to
country,
be like,
the country's at war. We need more soldiers. Of course, we're going to go to our childs.
yeah, like why are you breeding us for war, sir? Like, that'd be a fun conversation. But apparently, like, it's supposed to be pretty good. Like, all the relative perception I've been seeing on it from like the Fire Emblem side of things and like the more general gaming demographic is that it's just really good. They found their balance, but
I mean,
I can't stomach right now another Japanese style role-playing game where you're a chosen hero who goes to high school, gets a ragtag group of different friends from said school, and needs to go save the world. I don't have it in me right now.
Dude, Persona 5 Royal Edition's coming out soon.
I know. But I'm tired of it in Persona. The next Persona game, like Persona 6, is still high school, I'm out.
Welcome to university.
They need to move the fuck on.
Middle school.
Persona
Elementary
2
school
was
kids.
cool because people were freaking adults and smoked cigarettes and had guns.
Hey, you got a gun in Persona 5. You get a gun in Smash.
It's a fake gun.
Blasphemy.
People had real ass guns in Persona 2. You fought frickin' Hitler in Persona 2.
And real blood.
Real blood.
And
But Three Houses, just, to me, it seems to be trying to be halfway between like the catering and pandering to that crowd. And still trying to retain the Fire Emblem core audience of like, here's this engaging gameplay, like here's these mechanics to change stats and affect the numbers behind the scenes. Like, there's stuff like that appeals to the hardcore. And I can't say, I don't know if a lot of people can say right now, because, you know, this was very similar to Awakening situation where it came out and everyone was over the moon for it. Then a couple months later, people started to really turn against it in like a really nasty way. Like, there was a huge thing on like subreddits and Twitter where people were basically calling it out, going like, you're not a Fire Emblem fan, you only like Awakening, like you're trash. I'm a Fire Emblem fan because I played since like Path of Radiance or stuff like that, and it got really bad. It was like the Shin Megami Tensei versus Persona type of thing.
Okay, I can see where that's coming from.
Yeah, where it's like this feeling of, you're not a real fan. You only like the thing that panders to you. You don't like the thing that's like hardcore, like cool.
I always wonder why people are like that. I guess the only reason I can think of is that they kind of feel threatened that if the more casual perspective, like the newer edition of the game, is more popular than what they grew up to like, that they're going to lose that in future games. That's why they want to preserve it.
Yeah, that's part of it, and part of it's validation too, right? Like, if you like this one part and you think it's fantastic, like if I go like, hey, like I think the support system in Fire Emblem GBA is like amazing and I love what it does with the characters and this is in the spirit of the game, and the next game goes, no, it's about dating and marrying and having children and appealing to this. That's what this is about. I would be all upset, but then I can look at the numbers and see like I'm wrong because it sells. I am wrong. My opinion is not validated by like by capitalism because people don't buy it. People buy baby making. You can put that quote on the box.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because I can.
Just because nobody watches or listens to our thing, that doesn't mean you can say whatever you want.
This is how you catch on. But my core thing with Three Houses is it's just gotten to a point where I'm very apprehensive about the direction of Fire Emblem, and that's really hard to say. Like, it is the first Fire Emblem game at launch I have not purchased that has come out in North America.
Well, I will end this conversation because, the game just came out. We can't really say anything about Three Houses.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say this, like, generally from my research and looking up reviews and just seeing what people in like the Fire Emblem community are saying, a lot of the impressions are really positive. But having said for now, and having said that, like, it still is appealing to that certain demographic. It's still pushing like the social day-to-day dating-esque elements. And it might not be within the spirit of what I and maybe some other hardcore Fire Emblem fans consider to be the spirit of the franchise. So take everything with a grain of salt.
End with this question for you. If I buy Three Houses for you for your birthday, will you stream it with me?
That could be fun.
It will be fun.
What house?
Oh, for fuck. Oh my god.
There's only two answers that I would lean towards.
The one with the chick?
Edelgard, Edgelord,
ex-girl.
I mean, I do like the look of her crew.
Her or Golden Deer?
No? Blue Lions.
What are you, a racist?
No, but I'm not bi. But that's a big thing people were pushing for the deer house.
Oh boy.
But I really want to know more about the Blue Lion side of things, just because you like seeing the time skip and what happens to like the main dude from that. It's like, what the fuck happened?
Oh, freaking Aryans got betrayed. That's what.
Yeah, like it's like you went through something. Like that's. I would be curious just to see like what transformed you. So that would be a good like playthrough too or something. But.
Well, you heard it here. We are totally streaming it when I bother to actually pay for this game. Whenever I feel like we're devoid of content, maybe we'll do it. Who knows? And actually figure like a dual mic setup at his house or my house. Who knows?
I mean, it's possible. We might have something for the inputs.
No, we need to get a mixer. Or we just share a mic or something.
Could do that too.
I mean, we'll figure something out. But I think Darren likes to play the games. I like to laugh at support conversations. So I think it's a good mix. Yep. And I can tell you who do like romance, and you can't say shit about it.
But I can tell you that you should totally leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And let us know what you think, as it really helps out the podcast. Can help us take that feedback and make it better. Helps let other people know what you think. Otherwise, be sure to check us out. Subscribe to stay tuned for more episodes of the Gaming Blues podcast. Andy, I give it back to you.
You will find us on major platforms such as iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, which seems to be the most popular option. We're also available on Podbean and Stitcher. Well, not Stitcher, because Stitcher doesn't like me. We're also on the YouTube, so subscribe to our channel. We will be posting, hopefully someone will be posting content there. I mean,
hopefully.
I got all my streaming setup ready. I ordered one more component that will make my console streaming a lot more easier. And I have a shit ton of backlog. And if you like seeing people struggle with games, I haven't beat Bloodborne yet. That'll be fun.
That'll be a struggle.
That'll be fun. But as always, thank you for tuning in, watching, listening, wherever you're enjoying our content. And thank you for Darren for joining me as always.
Not always.
Not always, but
It's the past 2 weeks of
if
show.
he's not showing, I'll just do solo content because I like to ramble. And I will try to upload this on a weekly basis. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, listeners, and we will see you next week.